Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Nearshore Cafe podcast. I'm Brian Samson, your host. We're sponsored by Plug Technologies, great way to connect software developers from Latin America to growing U.S. companies. We've got a treat today. If you're in a hiring position with a U.S. company, engineering leader, product leader, you're going to want to listen. We've got a real life example of how someone went through this and they evaluated and hired nearshore team members. We're lucky to have Kevin Haggard on the show. Kevin's the VP of Engineering for Zengines. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Zengines, let's start there. What is it? What does it do? Who is it for? Can you tell us more?
Yeah, sure. So we're a very early stage startup. We're pre-series A. What Zengines focuses on is data conversion. So trying to help people or companies move data from, you can think of it like moving from like large like mainframe systems, out-of-date systems to more modern systems. And so we're trying to help them with that data conversion, also helping our clients move their customers in like an onboarding situation where they're trying to bring data onto their platform from one of their clients and helping them do that. So we're trying to automate that process as much as possible, leveraging machine learning to help with that. So it's a big problem. Companies spend billions of dollars on this every year, especially like large financial institutions. So that's typically who we're targeting, but we're not limited to just that. That's kind of where we've been focusing at first. But we'll expand beyond that as the company gets older and more mature.
Yeah. And tell us a little more about how you came in the Zengines. How did that story happen?
Yeah, I knew one of the co-founders. I was taking a break from spending some time with my kids and just wanted to take a little break from work. I hadn't done that before in my career, so I was excited to do it. And then and the co-founder and I had worked at a previous company before, and we just stayed in touch. And like he was telling me about Zengines all along. And when I decided to take my break, and as when I started looking, it's like, hey, were you interested in joining us? And ended up being a good fit. And so met with the team, liked everyone, and they liked me. So I joined Zengines a little over a year ago.
That's great. And your title is VP of Engineering, and there's semantics, I think, across the industry of, you ask 10 VPs of engineering what they do, you may get 10 different answers. What does that mean for you today?
Yeah. So for me, I am responsible for everything technology within the company. So from securing our assets, infrastructure, IT, our devices, to the delivery of the software. And I have some really good partners, like a VP of product and design that I work with. So he is driving a lot of the requirements and designs with his group. And then my team is responsible for making sure we deliver what we say we're going to do, and trying to make it work and keep it up and running as well.
Yeah. And what does your team look like today?
Yeah, so we're a mix of we're about 15 people. We're a mix of data scientists, full stack engineers, both back end, front end, and then a couple of people on like infrastructure, like Eng operations. They all do a little more than that, but like your typical SRE team.
Yeah,
but a little more than that just because of the size of where we are right now.
sure.
But as we grow, they'll kind of more formalize and wear probably less hats, but not for a while.
Yeah. The old scale versus scope question. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you mind sharing a little more about what the tech stack looks like?
Yeah. So we are majority of the tech stack is like backend is Python, Postgres, MySQL on our databases. We use Redis a lot for messaging and for caching, and then we've got we're switching to React for our front end away from Vue, mostly because of just the availability of people that are available. Obviously, TypeScript as well, and then Next.js as well.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And if you don't mind, a little bit about some of the other places you've been a VP of engineering at. Can you give us some sense of the scope and the scale and
Yeah.
the team size? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was VP of engineering at Retail Me Not. We were it was, think of it like online. It was basically online coupons helping people try to save money.
Yeah.
I think at one point had somewhere close to 150 people in the org reporting to me, bunch of various teams. So definitely much different scale
Yeah.
than where we are today. At Zengines. And it had its own challenges. One of the teams I led there was like an incubation team. So we were trying to uh, help the company find the next big thing that we should
Hmm.
pursue. And we had
Interesting.
some good successes. We had a lot of failures, as you would
Yeah.
expect. So that was really
Yeah.
fun. Um, we made a few acquisitions that I led when we integrated them into the company as well. So that was and that was a global team as well. Most of the people were in Austin, but we had people all over, especially like Eastern Europe, um, and Phoenix were some of like hub spots for where we had people.
Okay.
After that, Security Scorecard, which is a security company that focuses on giving a public profile rating, help you understand your cybersecurity posture. Think of like if you're a vendor or if you're hiring some vendors and you want to know what their security posture is, it's a way to have an outside point of view of the security posture of that company and basically give you an A to F type rating. And help you understand some of the issues that they were facing as well. So there, we're probably, I can't remember the exact size we were. We're probably uh, between 50 to 60 engineers. Uh, Argentina, uh, let's see, Czech Republic.
Hmm.
I think we had some other, mostly Argentina. I think we had people in a few other locations too, and then all across the U.S. We were fully remote company. Well, not fully
Hmm.
remote. We were a remote company with a headquarter in New York before the pandemic. So the majority of us were working remotely at
Okay.
that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
then after that, SimSpace, another cybersecurity company.
Okay.
And that was thinking of like cybersecurity training, helping people prepare for attacks, and a lot of it was DoD related engagements, or we were delivering software to them. And again, teams kind of all over, but definitely all over the U.S. Then heavily in Peru as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say you've done a little bit of hiring in your career.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll start with your U.S. hiring experience. Can you talk about maybe some of the, you don't have to name names, but some of the better engineers that you've hired? What does that look like to you? You know, what are you usually looking for in these
Yeah.
types of people?
Yeah. So when I'm looking to hire people, it kind of depends on the level too. If we're going for someone with a lot more seniority, and they're going to be driving a lot of the work, I look for people who can talk through how they delivered the work that they've done. I'm really interested in the interpersonal skills, like how well can they mentor and help others, because we hear this, about 10x engineers. I'm not a big fan of or believe in that, but there are
Yeah.
those people who can enable others to deliver a lot more. And that's usually when I'm looking at the senior people, how are they enabling others to be more productive, get things done? Besides just the technical skills, which are really, those are extremely important. But those soft skills are just as important, because if they can't help the rest of the team grow and deliver, then it just typically aren't as successful. So I look for people that have really those type of soft skills. And there's been some really good. I've been fortunate to work with some really strong engineers that I hope I will get the opportunity to work with again.
Yeah.
Some of them I've worked with a couple of times, but hopefully find a third and fourth time to get to do that as well.
Yeah.
Uh, on the more junior side, like when people are like earlier in their career, there I'm looking for the hunger. Besides
Mm.
the technical skills are really important too. But I've hired people with English degrees who've gone into tech, and computer science degrees from some of the best tech schools in the U.S. And one thing, the ones that do really well, just have a passion for learning and kind of just go get it attitude. Whereas like they're not waiting for you to tell them everything they have to do to be able to do work. They are they'll get out there, discover that you can just tell that they soak up, they're like a sponge, just soaking up as much information and trying things, will break things, but and take feedback really well, but
Yeah.
and talk to others about how to do things. And so again, coming back to the soft skills are extremely important around like communication and being able to ask questions. But yeah, for the, I look for, I really try to figure out a way in during the interview process to see what, how they react or like what those skills are going to be like. I try to stay away from uh, coding exercises in
Mm.
terms of whiteboarding sessions or online coding exercises. I don't think those work well for, I mean, they do for some people, but not for everyone. It's better to give people a choice. Often what I like to do is say, bring us an application that, or some code that you've written, walk us through it, tell us about it. You can learn a lot. You can learn a lot about
Mm.
what people are passionate about and how well they know the tech if they walk through their own code.
Yeah. It's really interesting what you said about your hiring process today. Did you always feel that way, or is this
Oh
kind of
no, I
something
mean,
that
there was a time
you've
where
yeah kind of
it,
switch your thought process on that?
yeah,
Yeah.
it really came. I think when I was at Retail Me Not, it really sank in. We were hiring so many people, and we had interviewing days where it was like whiteboarding sessions and
Yeah.
just people walking through tons of code. And you could tell that for some people, we knew they were probably really good engineers, but they just weren't doing well in that scenario.
Yeah.
So we started thinking like, well, what else could we do? So we started doing take home exercises and that people could come back, which are good. But you're also cutting into people, they have a job and it's a hot market, especially going back to like like 2012 to up through the pandemic. It was a hot market. It was hard to hire people. So you had to make it to where it wasn't too much of a burden for people to do the interviews as well.
Yeah.
And so I had to start changing it. And then I think recently with a lot of the layoffs that have happened and the tech market just being down somewhat, a lot of companies have started putting those barriers back in place.
Mm.
I'm not a huge fan of that. I actually think it's still important to how can you make the candidate experience as good as possible, because if it's good for them, it's actually probably good for you as a hiring manager.
Yeah.
So I've really tried to change away from giving questions around like theoretical stuff that they could be doing here, but like and during the interviews we'll talk about what we do, and then we'll
Mm.
ask them when we get to the coding part to or like going through their tech, try to give them something if they can figure out a way to relate the work that they've done to what we're trying to do. And in Zengines, that's kind of hard because not a lot of people have done data conversions, but in other aspects, people have, in like other industries or other companies have done something similar, and they can show examples of that. So, but yeah, I think that shift really happened for me a few years ago of trying to make it easier and make it a better candidate experience for doing the interview. Even in this market, I still think that's important to do.
Yeah. Especially for the really great talent, they
Yeah,
experience matters, and you're always looking for any differentiator you can have,
yeah,
competitive
exactly.
advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think about the steps in the process? About how many times do you need to do you your team need to touch that engineer to
Yeah.
feel like you've got all the information that you need?
Yeah. I typically I'd say about four people, 4 to 5 is the max. But it's every interview is different in terms of what we're focusing on. We try to make sure we're not covering the same topics. And um, and then after that, I like to ask them if they've learned anything in the interview, like or people heard about people that they want to also meet.
Mm-hmm.
But you typically know within 4 to 5. I will always do the first screen and get
Mm-hmm.
us to get a feel of like, do we progress on or not, and then and if we do, then I'll introduce them to the group, and then they'll meet. Then they'll go and meet everyone else.
Yeah. When you're spending your time the way you want to as a VP of engineering, how much of that time is spent on recruiting?
Oh, yeah, I would say the majority of it.
Mm.
When I'm able, especially when we're hiring a lot. I mean, it's engines we're not hiring a lot right now, so I'm not spending a ton of time there. But again, when you're in a growth mode, I'd say the majority of it is spent there, and that's where as a VP of engineering, you got to have really good leaders that can help support running the day to day. And I still have to be there for the critical delivery or critical issues that are happening. But I think the majority of it has to be recruiting. Also important to that, it's not just when I think about recruiting, it's not just recruiting for the people coming in. It's also like, what am I doing to recruit the people that are here to keep them at the company? Because the cost of turning them leaving is expensive and having to replace. So, but yeah, you know, I would say probably somewhere 60 to 70% of my time would be spent there.
When was you had mentioned earlier a few different countries that you've worked with.
Yeah.
What was your first experience of working with engineers outside the US? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. That was probably when I was at Deloitte.
Mm.
Early 2000s, we had some team members in India, and yeah, that was probably the first time. And but there was more interfacing of like I was just handing off work. I wasn't really I wasn't in a manager role, so I wasn't, it was really just kind of helping them get their work done, checking work, things like that. And then, but I'd say probably manager from like where I really felt like I got close to the team and really got to know them. So I was at Weight Watchers very early in my career, early 2000s. We were the .com part of Weight Watchers, and it was like a startup within the bigger company. Well, we actually were a separate company at the time, but we were doing the digital experience, and I was working with the team in Jordan. It was a phenomenal experience.
Oh, interesting.
I was surprised because I'd never heard anyone outsourcing to Jordan.
Yeah.
And but it was at that time. I mean, so many companies are trying to outsource. It was actually really a great spot for us because there weren't very many other players in the market. So we weren't facing competition of like you would in India at the time, where where so many companies were outsourcing at the time. They would scoop up thousands of people, and so for us to retain people was almost impossible. But by going to Jordan, we weren't facing that same competition. We were getting phenomenal talent too.
Yeah.
And, so it was really a fun and interesting experience, and plus just getting to spend time in the country was really fascinating. I learned a ton just about Jordan and getting to see Petra. Got to go there 2 or 3 times with the team. It was a really, really great experience. So I'd say, I think since then I got a little, so I think if I can travel to the countries where people I'm working with, that gets me even more excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then what led you over to Eastern Europe?
Yeah, so we were, I think it I think it was Retail Me Not when the first time we were doing work there in the Ukraine, and just we needed people that were really good at like advanced logic or like algorithms. And it's interesting in Eastern Europe, the math, the way they teach math and computer science is just very. It's just really strong, and so people coming out of there like really good back-end engineers, and we had really great success with the team there, and really good people, good English skills as well. So we didn't have really a lot of communication barriers. Really, the time zone was the biggest challenge that we had, but that wasn't too bad. We had a few hours of overlap every day, so that wasn't really much of a problem. But that was also a really great experience to be able to spend some time there. And then I've gone back to Eastern Europe, like the Czech Republic, with Security Scorecard. That was really good talent as well, both from front end and back end, which was I hadn't done front end in Eastern Europe before, but found some really good people there doing the work. Again, time zones were a challenge, but still quite a bit of overlap before too big of an issue.
Yeah. When you think about the intentionality, of India, Jordan, Ukraine, Czech, was it originally a follow the sun operation, or you were just looking for like the best engineers you could find, or was it costs? What were some of the original intentions for those?
Yeah, we weren't really looking at follow the sun. We were really kind of looking just where somebody had experience working in that market before or in that area, looking for a really good talent pool, and just and where people were available, and also kind of the people that we're going to be working with, and from a leadership perspective, and for managing the day to day, companies or outsourcing companies that had good leadership in place to help support and grow the people there as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of from my the various stages of companies, like as you're more mature, like like a 200 to 200 plus company, you have a lot more processes in place. You probably have your HR department that can help. You can afford to have these other your partners manage a lot of the day to day for you because you're focused on your full time staff. But in like early stages like me, I like to be much more hands on with the team that I'm working with, almost where I'm acting like the hiring manager for them because I'm treating them like that. I'm doing one-on-ones with them, getting to know them because we're so small. They're a critical part to our delivery. Like we can't have a misstep. But at the larger companies, there's you have more number or more people, so you need local leaders who can do the touch points with them and get to know them better and support them. So I think that's I look at it differently now, the size based on the size of the company I am. But then another company in the future, or Zengines grows, I would look at it differently depending on what stage of the company we are.
Yeah. Do you tend to work in a agile sprint stand-up type of style?
We follow more of a Kanban approach, and but we'll put dates and objectives out of like what we're hoping to hit, and that's kind of help us around like prioritizing if we're trying to go by this date. What do we need to cut out? What do we really need to focus on? Just kind of help just clarity of what we're trying to deliver. But it is definitely agile, maybe a little chaos at sometimes. Just as early stage, you're having to react to things. So that's part of it.
Sure. Yeah. And what led you to Latin America? Can you remember the first time you hired out there?
Yeah. So again, back at Retail Me Not, we were looking at we wanted to find someone that was in similar time zones and that we could work with. We just wanted more overlap, just during the day, like when you're instant messaging back and forth, like on Slack, you want to be able to chat or say, hey, let's get together and chat about something, not have to wait till the next day. So we looked in Argentina, we found a good partner there, started working with them, but we did it in a limited capacity. It wasn't until we probably had 10 people that were working with us at one point on a specific area. That only lasted for a couple of years, not because of their capability, just because of the way the business was growing. We needed a trimmed staff, so we cut there first, and then then Security Scorecard. We had a good portion of the team in Argentina because of one of the early engineers on the team was from there, and then was able to hire a lot through his network and grow that. And so I think we had 20 something people there at one point.
Yeah,
really good team members. So I think the first time was, I think it was Retail Me Not when I went into Argentina, and that took a while too because we looked in. Let's see, I think we were looking in Honduras, some of the other Latin American countries. We were having a lot of, we just had a lot of missteps. We couldn't find we were really struggling to find good technical skills, good communication skills. But I would say the technical skills just weren't where we were hoping to find. And it was, part of that's we were, not to say that those skills don't exist there. We just weren't able to find the partners, the people there that we needed, but we were able to find it in Argentina at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Argentina is a little more mature. They export a lot of software services. A lot of people do that. And I'm excited to ask you about the travel part because you've traveled a lot of these places. Tell us about your first time visiting Argentina and your thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Loved it. I haven't been back in a long time. I want to take my wife and my kids. They've heard me talk about it a lot. I've had some of them come to visit here. My family's met them, so they're anxious to go. Food and the people are great. It's especially the food, the wine and the steaks. Like I would be a very happy person. I am a very happy person when I'm eating there. And so definitely hope to get back. And it's a beautiful country too. So Buenos Aires is very has a very European feel to it in terms of like if you're used to like if you've been to Europe and you've traveled to European cities, the architecture and stuff is very similar to that. So it's you know it's beautiful. I really like it.
Yeah.
There's some beautiful parts to travel outside of the country or outside of the city as well. So I hope to go back and do more there. I would love to explore Patagonia and Mendoza
Yeah.
more. So eat and drink my way through Argentina would be great.
Yeah. Well, if you ever make it to Mendoza or Patagonia, those are some of my favorites. Happy to share some
Yeah. Oh,
travel
great.
tips with you. Yeah.
Well,
Um, you've really hit a lot on communication, plus technical skills. So I guess what Argentina has is the overlap, over some of the other countries. But can you talk a little more specifically about any patterns or things you've seen especially from a communication standpoint when you're working with Argentina?
yeah, I think it varies. You'll find some people that are very shy or very
Mm-hmm.
English is a second language,
Mm-hmm.
and so you've got to find some people that kind of that feel comfortable communicating. It also depends on the size of the team. So when we had a larger team, we didn't need everyone to be really strong in English because we could rely on some of the other people to be more effective in that. But the leaders had to have really good communication skills, had to be able to travel and spend time with us. Same
Mm.
for going to there. And so I think the patterns are, I think not everyone is comfortable or as skilled as in speaking. And so I think that we're good at written communication. You got to be a little slower too, and like how you're communicating things. So don't be, I think after living in New York for 13 years, I can be at different times, I can be very rapid fire in how I'm talking.
Yeah.
But then I'm from Texas originally, so I can be very laid back as well. But with business, I can just rapid fire, and I got to make sure I don't do that. Be very articulate in what I'm saying, and give them time to think about what we're doing, and not, and just not expect an immediate response or just a constant dialogue back and forth. There needs to be pauses in there. That's why written communication is really good. And if you see that from them, I feel really confident that they're going to be a great hire. If with the other skills that are there too. But yeah, I think I don't find, like I will say, I don't know if in Argentina that the skill set I've seen or the pattern has been different there than I have seen in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, I think, just that second language part of just like where are they at that level, and my Spanish is terrible, so I have to rely on them to do the heavy lifting for that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Is there anything else that sometimes people talk about the passion of the country there and the people, or in my experience I've seen a lot more pushback sometimes, like
Hmm.
if they don't agree with the technical
Yeah,
decisions or the trade-offs, you might get that, and sometimes you want
yeah,
that, sometimes you don't.
yeah.
Can you talk more about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, definitely. It's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, definitely in some places you'll get you tell me what you want me to do, I'll go do it. But there are the others that really kind of want to have a discussion about the way it's being implemented. I would say, in my experience, Eastern Europe, Argentina, were really good about pushing back or asking questions, um, and challenging. And I would say Ireland as well. And and then in other countries like India and Jordan, um, I would say those tend to. I mean, just this is, I hate being so it's not to stereotype, but I'd say it's not fair to everyone because not everyone's like
Of
that. But
course, yeah.
but the there a lot of it's like waiting to, or not waiting, but you tell them what you want to go do and they'll do it, and they'll usually do it very well, but they're not necessarily questioning it. And I think that depends on what people are looking for to
Yeah.
decide what's the best fit for them. And I personally like the challenge. I like people pushing back and asking
Mhm.
not always agreeing with the way to do it. Just my style for as a manager. But in other times, you just kind of need people to follow, do what I tell you to do. Don't
Yeah.
question it, just get it done type thing. Um, but you can find that anywhere as
Yeah,
well.
sure.
Both personality types exist.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll have quite a few software engineering leaders, listening to the show. And if you have any advice for them on like how stage of your company might matter in um, this is exactly what I want, just do it, versus, I don't know, maybe earlier stage, you might want some more collaboration and pushback. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion is always get people who are going to challenge, even if or try to get them to challenge
Hmm.
or ask questions, feel comfortable with that. That's just my opinion. At all stages of a company, I definitely think it's important at the earlier stages because um, you're trying to, people could see that different ways. Like I see it that way because you're young in what you're doing. You want to make sure you're doing it right. You want to hear various opinions. I also, at the earlier stages, I like to go for more senior people,
Mm.
which is not always beneficial to the company because of cost. But uh, I think it's I think it's a fallacy that just because you're hiring cheaper labor that you're going, or like younger people that are less experienced, that you're saving the company money. You're actually could be spending more because of
Mm.
delivery time, not understanding trade-offs that are being made. So I actually like to emphasize fewer hires, more senior people in the earlier stages because I think it improves our chances of getting it right.
Mm.
Excuse me. Um, So in the later stages, I think then you're looking for that more mix of skill sets.
Mm.
You need your more senior people, but you also need the mix of people who are learning and being mentored and growing in their career because of the evolution of it's a longer, more stable company. You're going to have people there for multiple years. You need to create that kind of pyramid or that
Yeah,
leveling
sure.
and give the people that are more senior chances to mentor others. I try to think about staffing or like where I go for that, but you do have to, and then weigh in the cost factor to it. So, um, certain areas in Latin America are more affordable, or in South America than others. And same with like Eastern Europe. There was at one point we were Eastern European salaries weren't too different from salaries in the U.S.
Mm.
So it wasn't about there. It was about just getting great people wherever you happen to be. It wasn't we were outsourcing from a cost perspective. It was just we were trying to find the best staff we could. And then if you're having to be cost conscious, you have to look at what those countries, what the average salary is for those. And so, and you can get senior people in those other countries, but the pool may not be as big as
Mm.
some of the others. Like in Argentina, there's a big pool. It's a much larger population than if you were trying to go to, um, like just a smaller country, like a Honduras or somewhere
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. It makes me think about your earlier point about maybe fishing where others aren't. Like when you were
Yeah,
in Jordan, you had less competition.
yeah,
There's great people everywhere.
yeah,
Are you fishing in San Francisco with everybody else, or
yeah, yeah, exactly.
did you find some arbitrage? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's harder to do that now because of well, at least it was recently because of the pandemic and then everybody working remotely.
Mm.
With a lot of companies forcing or pushing to go back into the office, that makes it easier for companies like us that are fully remote to get back to that and
Yeah,
find talent in those areas that others wouldn't maybe go pursue.
yeah. And then Peru has come up.
Yeah,
We don't want to make this only about Argentina. Yeah.
yeah, no,
How
no,
about Peru?
Peru's important.
How did you stumble into Peru? Mexico and Argentina seem to be on the and Colombia seem to be on the more commonly used nearshoring countries. Peru is a little less common, so we'd love to hear the story around that.
Yeah, so Security Scorecard, when I was working there was already a relationship established there, and it was specifically because of the type of tech we were doing, and the company we were working with was had a lot of experience in functional programming, a specific language that we were looking for, and had just really good staff. But and we were finding just as we were expanding our tech stack, getting out of that, there were a lot of other people within Peru that were meeting some of the needs that we had. So we got excited about that, and and kept recruiting and expanding there. And I've been to Peru on vacation for myself, not
Yeah.
unfortunately with business. And it's also, phenomenal country to visit, and such a diverse geography. It's really cool to get to visit there. Coming back to where I like to go travel if I can outsource it. But anyway, the Peru didn't work out that way for me. I just was fortunate enough to travel there earlier, but I would love to get a chance to go back. But good English skills, technical skills were, I just didn't know what to expect, and been very impressed with the people that we've had there. And both now that we're working, um, we work with you guys on at Zengines. We've hired a couple of people there, and they've been doing a fantastic job. And so we just keep finding them really good talent, good diverse talent too, around different tech stacks. And been pretty, yeah. I think it's not it wasn't a place that was on my radar a few years
Mm.
ago, but like now when I think about it, or like when I think about like where I want to, if I want to build a developer hub in a specific area, especially like if we're going to try to bring people together occasionally, we do, we're remote, we want to get together periodically. As we expand more in our hiring, we'll hire in the U.S., but we'll also hire more in Peru. And but it's a, in at some point we'll probably all meet up in Lima,
Yeah.
and just somewhere central for them to be able to get to meet. And but yeah, talent there has been really great. I think this is true with any country. The largest thing, I mean, I think one of the hardest considerations is figuring out hardware situation.
Mm.
So unfortunately, our application requires pretty hefty machines, like a lot of RAM, and so it's not always easy to get the latest and greatest into the countries, and so you have to work with them to plan for that and just take a little longer lead times, and think about the cost of that too. So that's probably been the biggest challenge for that. Actually, that is the biggest challenge. Outside of that, like technical skills, communication, at least with the people I've worked with, have been there. Really been really good, on par with what I've seen in other countries as well. Other places I've
Yeah.
gotten to work.
Have you seen the challenge and challenging trade-offs, challenging that you might see in other places too?
You know, um, I think I'm still learning. I think I'm still learning a lot about Peru. I think there are, kind of come back to mixed personality, or like the types of personality types. I've seen both there. Like people who are just do what you want, they'll get it done. Then there's the other of, hey, I'll question and challenge you, and I think that kind of has with seniority and comfort level. Um, and so that part's been good. I think what has been really beneficial to us is the cost, the labor market there is the cost of labor is much better for us than for like some of the other countries, like than Argentina. Argentina is just a
Hmm.
lot more expensive, and I think the cost of living there is much higher than it is especially with inflation, than it is in Peru. So that is, I don't think I've really run into challenges from staffing, or like the type of skill sets and stuff like that. It's all been on par with what I've experienced in other places, but financially, like, good as well.
That's great to hear. Yeah. We've had a few people from Peru on the pod, including startup founders in Peru that
Yeah,
have raised VC money from the U.S. and they're just able to compete. Like there's a lot less
yeah,
competition because the domestic Peruvian companies just can't touch it.
yeah,
So I'm sure as you're fishing again, I think a common theme of the show is arbitrage and finding untapped markets,
yeah.
whether it's Jordan or Lima, and it's great to hear that.
Yeah, and thinking about like people in Peru raising money from VCs in the US, I think that that reminds me. I think depending on the kind of company you are, what are you looking for in the people? Are people comfortable with risk and doing a startup? And I haven't seen anyone in Peru concerned about that. And
Mhm.
so there's like, I've usually had long relationships, like very little turnover with the people that I've worked with. And obviously as engines, we're still very early on, so wouldn't expect that. But previous company, very consistent. And I think that was really nice. So like you could build a team there and not worry about it changing on you too frequently, which is very helpful because you invest a lot of time in building up the knowledge. So I think, in these countries, where do people feel comfortable, or the type of risk are they willing to take,
Mm.
is important too. Like I think some places in some countries I've worked, people were very typical, like wanted to be at the large companies. Who they worked for is a large part of their identity, and and that, it's brand names mattered. But in some countries that doesn't matter as much. Like it's not as much about their identity. It doesn't, and it's not as impressive about the name of the company they're working for. It's about they care more about like what are they getting to do and what skills
Mm.
are they developing and learning, getting to work on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. You've already been so generous, Kevin. Ruben, what do we miss? Is there anything that we should be asking?
Yeah, there was one thing, Kevin, every day when we're talking to our clients, prospects, and over the last year and a half, we've heard this over and over again. The reason to go near shore has been time zone alignment. I mean, that's been the number one overwhelming reason. Of course, there's other things, cost, cultural affinity, things like that. I'm just wondering from your perspective, how does that affect your projects, the efficiency, how quickly you can get things done? If you can just speak a little bit to that, that would be.
Yeah, the time zone part is extremely critical. Just for, I mean, believe in asynchronous communication and not having to everybody be on the same hours. But the fact that the majority of your day is spent same time, it's easy to get together, have impromptu meetings, just to like get together and talk. And especially like developers like wanting to be able to jump on a call, just do a huddle on Slack for 10 minutes. And so like do that any point in the day, like in the afternoon. It's extremely important, especially when I think about our stage of company. We have to be very careful that we are hitting the milestones that we're trying to accomplish, so that it sets up the business to be successful. So that to me was extremely important. So when we started discussing doing some outsourcing as Zengines, I could have easily have gone to some really good partners that I have in Eastern Europe and gotten very good talent. It would have been more expensive, but I was less concerned about that than I was the overlap, the time,
Mm.
being able to quickly have a discussion, not having to wait till the next day to have it. And so I think having on that same time zone or very similar time zones is extremely, just extremely important at that earlier stage. And I think kind of depends on this. It could be us as a company, but it could be at any other company, the stage of the product that they're working on, the things that they're working on. It's very early on. Having lots of discussions and being able to communicate is so important. When it gets more mature, you can rely on little more formal channels to have a communication about stuff, plan things a little more ahead. So, but yeah, that time zone was the number one factor for Zengines and for me when we were looking at a partner for outsourcing.
That's great. That's great. And of course, what you said about a great testament to the country of Peru that probably a lot of the people listening today aren't going to be thinking about in terms of finding talent, where you have found some excellent talent, and that exists in other countries around Latin America as well.
Man, they should go to Colombia, Peru, or whatever. I mean, Colombia or Brazil. Like, stay out of Peru.
Stay out of Peru.
For me, no, I'm just kidding.
That's great. Kevin, is there anything else, like any last words of advice you might give other VPs of engineering that have never nearshored before? Advice so they have some success as they begin their journey down this path.
Yeah. I think being really good at written communication, clear with what to expect, how you're going to work with them is really important. Spending time with them and treating them almost like you do an employee, of like
Mm.
helping coach and mentor, spend time getting to know them, building those personal connections that you would with any full-time employee is extremely important to do. And like I think the more you treat them that way, instead of a hired gun or like just a mercenary, the better off you'll be, because they'll be really vested in what they're trying to do. And I have found when people understand what they're trying to accomplish and are part of that overall goal and not treated as just that mercenary type, delivery is phenomenal. And like, and just because they're part of, and they really contribute business ideas to what you're doing. So I would say, treat them as much as you can legally as an employee, and include them in everything that you can as a part of the company. And if you can send swag, send swag. Just those little things matter and are important.
That's great advice. I think I've seen this in my own career of sometimes there can be an us versus them.
Oh yeah.
And if you just make it us and us, it makes all the difference. Yeah.
If you can afford it, bring them to visit and get your team together or go visit. It's that I have found I've been in those finger pointing situations where that us versus them almost all the time that gets removed as soon as they start spending time together, spend a little bit of time, just get to know each other on a more personal level, not just a person over a camera.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, Kevin, this has been absolutely fantastic. We went a little over. Hope you don't mind, but this has just been a world of gems. So appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Enjoyed it.
We'll thank our sponsor, Plug Technologies, once more. That's plugg.tech. Great way to find software developers from Latin America for growing U.S. companies. Thanks again for listening to the Nearshore Cafe podcast. See you next time.